In 1988, my role within the London Waste Regulation Authority was a very odd one, in that I was there as the waste recycling officer, but I also had responsibility for promotion and publicity on behalf of the LWRA. And I had actually quite a free hand with regard to my activities. I was allowed to do a lot of things which frankly were beyond the remit of my job, which was actually quite fortunate. So, as I say, I was chair of the Socialist Environmental Resources Association, which is why we had this meeting at the House of Commons on the day that the private members' ballot actually was announced. So it was very fortunate that there was this early entree, but it did mean that I took on some degree of responsibility on behalf of the London Waste Regulation Authority to provide this support to Joan, and I was very pleased to do so. I mean, it was a new experience for all of us inside the London Waste Regulation Authority to do something like this, to get very actively involved in trying to sort out some of the problems that we faced. You know, it was not just Joan's constituents, but it was actually problems that we faced throughout London and nationally as well. And I suppose that was one of the difficulties that I faced. I had to make the case for supporting a private member's bill on behalf of the London Waste Regulation Authority, which was actually quite a difficult thing to do, because at that time the London Waste Regulation Authority was Conservative controlled. So I had as my political boss somebody called Councillor Joan Wykes, who was a member for Bromley and therefore not well disposed towards Joan Ruddock. So I was sort of squeezed between these two Joans.
Yeah.
However,
she was a great supporter.
She was a great supporter.
She was a great supporter.
But it took an awful lot of discussion over an extended telephone call to persuade her that you know, this was the right thing to do. I wasn't the devil incarnate. Well, absolutely. I mean, this was the problem. That you know, politically as well as personally, Joan Wykes was not initially enamoured in terms of support for this private members' bill, but nevertheless, she did become a very great supporter, and it meant, therefore, there was some resources that became available in the LWRA in order to support this private members' bill, including, and this was also fortunate, one of our legal advisors. Now, we had a number of legal advisors, but this one was actually from New Zealand, and she, I have to say, was very, very good, because she was determined herself to learn as much as she could with regard to this particular aspect of legislation. So she did a heck of a lot of background work and was very helpful in terms of liaising with our external advisors in order to produce this, actually, in retrospect, quite a complex bill. Private members' bills tend to be quite short, but this one, because Joan had these ambitions with regard to registration of carriers, seizure of vehicles and so on, she really wanted a fairly comprehensive framework to stop these people in their tracks.